Planet Mission Part 1 by David Claiborne, as read by the author. New chapters every Monday. The full novel is available on Amazon.com and other online retailers. Links in the description. Chapter 30. My Lord and My God. Beau's complete plan required him to get off Polus IV and back onto Polus Station. The spaceport had Li-Fi thanks to a boost from the station above, the flat plains which minimized atmospheric and geographic interference, and the gigantic antenna that was the budding space elevator to amplify signals. The Li-Fi was spotty, however. Worse, it was public, which meant unsecure, and neither of those suited his needs. He needed to get back into orbit. There were no scheduled launches, however, nor shuttles to launch, and a fuel shortage. The double punch of a tornado and severe thunderstorm damaged the fuel extraction and production facility. Dropships could arrive, therefore, but they did not depart except rarely. According to Alice, he needed to get in queue with the worker positions waiting to rotate out, unless he wanted to contact the administration for an exception. No, he did not, thank you very much. Mufasa's interim director, whom he had not even met and did not even know, would certainly ask for a report that he was not prepared to give, not until he reached out to Black, the important Black, the Black who was the key. She was the president's wife, which rumor had it was dissatisfied with the nature and limitations of her relationship to the president. Beau felt they were of the same mind. It seemed Black was willing to lie for status. Why should she not expose that lie to accumulate more power and status? "Missionary Lee," Alice said, "here is a new set of clothes. I do apologize that we do not have any Mufasa uniforms available. Please understand that it would require a special authorization from the administration to manufacture a single order for just you, which is unfortunately not possible due to the inefficiency of such a request." The clothes being offered matched the white trousers and shirt she had given Waters previously. They were the uniform of civil servant positions on Polus IV. "Please be careful not to soil them." "Missionary Lee," Alice said, "I have arranged a trailer for you while you await an available shuttle. Please let me know if I may be of further assistance while you remain at the spaceport." "Missionary Lee," Alice said, "I received a request from the interim director for a report on your mission status." "How did the interim director find out I was available to provide a report, Alice?" "I told him, of course." "Please let the interim director know—" "Wait, who is the interim director?" "Interim Director Stephen Shepard." "Of course. Please let Interim Director Shepard know that a report would be inappropriate at this time using the spaceport's unsecure network. My report will need to wait until I am able to access a secure network on Polus Station." "Of course. Would you like me to advocate for an exception for you in the queue?" "Yes, Alice, do that, please." "Of course." Beau languished in the queue, which was weeks long, months long, even after the fuel facility completed its repairs. So he waited. He celebrated the anniversary of his mission's arrival on Polus IV alone. Then he waited more, and watched the months pass alone. Polus IV's summer would fade into Nazimer by the time his turn arrived. "Missionary Lee, I am pleased to let you know that your turn in the queue has arrived. You are scheduled to depart on the shuttle for Polus Station Monday." "This Monday? That's excellent news, Alice." "No, Missionary Lee. The first Monday of next month. Shuttles depart only monthly now." "Thank you for the news, Alice," Beau said, disguising his frustration at the continued delays as best he could. Alice turned to leave when something occurred to him. "Alice, who is scheduled to pilot the shuttle?" "Why, Captain Jackson, whom you already have met. Will that be all?" "Great. Thank you, Alice." "We're going over the mountains. You should come too," Jonathan said, popping his head into the missionary's shelter. Waters, Tommy, and Junebug lounged in the shelter. They felt lazy after a day that had been hard and satisfying for each of them in its own way. Junebug worked in the fields. Tommy finished repairs on his flyer, and Waters finished a piece of writing he had been working on for weeks. It was a report in its own way, not for the administration, but for the pleasure of writing, and in his own style. "Right now?" Waters asked. "No, tomorrow morning. Have you seen the ocean?" Jonathan asked. "Not here, not on Polus," Waters said. "You'll love it," Jonathan said. "Can we swim?" Waters asked. "Of course, that's half the point of going. Bring swimwear," Jonathan said. The missionaries looked at each other blankly. Jonathan read the look that passed between them and said, "Don't worry, we can get you something," before he disappeared, returning an hour later arms full, and dumped clothes on the floor of the shelter. "Pick one. Make sure you try it on first." They left the next morning riding on Arcuda. A few smaller Onos and strong-necked Mulari happily trugged baggage. The Mulari had comically large ears that stood straight up. As their journey continued, Waters recognized the path he and the mayor took the previous year. A few colonists, including the mayor and Molly, came with them, but it was a small group. The air was cool in the morning, but the warm sunlight boded a hot day befitting Polus's Indian summer. "This is the best time to go to the beach," Jonathan said, obviously excited about the trip. He rode his Arcuda up and down the group, chatting up people in the train. "Why don't you just fly?" Tommy asked. "Sometimes we use technology, sometimes it uses us. This is one of the ways we make sure we're the ones doing the using," the mayor replied. "Besides, this is more fun," Jonathan added. Waters grunted. He did not mind riding, but he did not do it nearly as often as the others. He preferred to walk. The colonists always rode bareback, and he knew he would be saddle-sore later. It was going to be a hot day, and that meant sweating on top of a hairy Arcuda. They reached the pass and broke for lunch. It was cool, more so for the breeze, but the sky was clear, and the sun warmed their bones to the core even as the breeze raised little goosebumps on their skin. They shared a meal of honey cakes and a fizzy wine brewed from vitis, a tricky prospect given the fruit's habit of rotting quickly. It was cool and refreshing, though, and the drink eased their spirits and loosened their tongues. "I'm surprised," Waters said. "Surprised that you drink alcohol." "Why? Beer and wine are a gift to mankind," the mayor replied. "It's just that a lot of Christians back on Earth didn't drink. They were kind of notorious for it. I didn't expect you to drink either." "Well, look at how people use alcohol," Molly jumped into the conversation. "A lot of people don't drink for the joy of it. They drink to get drunk. That's the main reason a lot of Christians abstain from drinking." "It's the same idea as technology. Be sure you're the one in control and it's not a problem," the mayor said. "Still, you all should be careful how much you drink. We're at altitude here, and even though you've been here for a while, you're still not completely adapted to the planet. But let's not get too serious. Enjoy yourselves. Look, come to the top of the hill. You can see the ocean from here." The mayor was right. They climbed a little farther out of the saddle and up the path. The ocean spread out before them, an endless horizon of the deepest, most vivid colors, like every shade of wine Waters had seen. He felt anxious to be there all of a sudden. "We can go there?" he asked, with the touch of wonder he had not felt in years. "That's why we're here. Come on, let's pack up," the mayor said. They traveled up out of the saddle and over the far peak before they began their descent. This side of the mountain was different from the inland side. Low scrub over sandy soil covered it, and the few trees had broad leaves and bark that peeled off in great stringy sheets to reveal trunks lined with shades of green, blue, orange, and red like they had been painted. The litter from the leaves made the path slippery, though the animals managed it with little difficulty. At last they reached the edge of a great bluff that dropped in a sheer cliff to a sandy beach. They dismounted. The Onos and Mulari knew the way and proceeded down a narrow path on steps set into the cliff. "You'll have to wait here," the mayor said to the Arcuda. "The path is far too narrow for you." The Arcuda looked concerned, but did not follow as the group descended. The sun was at its full height in the sky now. Once they reached the beach, Waters took off his shoes. The light sand was uncomfortably hot, and he stepped back onto his shoes and used them as a platform. "Here, let's set these up," Jonathan said. He began unloading bundles from the backs of the animals and handed them to Tommy, Junebuck, and Waters. "What are they?" the missionaries asked. "Tents. For privacy, so you can change, and in case you want to get out of the sun for a while. Or if you just want to take a nap. Whatever you want. Let's have fun," Jonathan said. The tents went up almost automatically once they were unbundled, as if they were eager to unfold and take their given shape. By releasing a spring along the 3 corners, a pin shot into the ground and secured the tent in place. "That's clever," Tommy said. "The real trick is keeping the sand out. No one's been able to figure out how to do that yet," Jonathan said. Waters and Molly emerged from changing in their respective tents at the same time. Around her waist she wore a blue and white peril dyed in a pattern after the leaves of the painted trees. Waters thought she looked stunning. He looked down and took hold of the flesh on either side of his belly. Weeks of walking had done their part, but he still felt self-conscious. The other colonists emerged, and even the mayor looked fit and trim by comparison in his shorts and sunshirt. "How does an old guy stay so fit?" Waters asked Tommy. "Must be all the Bible thumping," he quipped. The mayor began. "Before you go swimming, remember that you're still not fully accustomed to the planet." "Race you!" Molly shouted as she tossed her pareo aside. Waters, Molly, Tommy, Jonathan, and I took off toward the water. Junebug came bursting out of a tent after the others, still kicking off a shoe. "Kids," the mayor said. "May we ever be the same," Patience said. Waters hit the water and leapt up sputtering. The cold sapped the breath from his lungs, and he made back for dry sand immediately. Tommy, who had the same experience, followed close on his heels. Junebug pulled up short when he saw their reaction to the water, then gave a shrug and plunged in anyway. He too emerged sputtering, but forced himself to stay. He grimaced and grunted with the effort. Jonathan laughed and paddled around on his back. He lounged with his arms behind his head and floated. "No way I'm missing this," Tommy said from the beach to where he had retreated. He did not plunge this time, instead making his way into the water inch by inch. Waters followed, and after a few minutes they relaxed and were able to tolerate the water. As evening fell, the cool air and the ocean mixed with warmer air pouring down the mountain, and clouds began to build. Not storm clouds, but low cumulus. The sun broke through in perfect fingers of light. It touched the ocean only to scatter from the water's surface in a sparkling display that reflected on the underside of the clouds. Jacob's ladders dotted the ocean from the beach to the horizon. The party, missionaries and colonists, took in the scene from a vantage point on the hill, the Arcuda glad to have them near again. As they watched, an enormous creature plunged through the clouds, and the group pointed with audible oohs. "A felina," Molly said. "I've only ever seen them much higher in the sky," Waters said. The animal plunged through the clouds and into the ocean below. A jet of vapor from the clouds followed it into the water. Mouth agape, it sent a tower of foam and spray several stories into the air. The group gasped. A couple even clapped. Its tail and wings pumped, and the felina rose back into the sky, spurting water out through baleen plates. "It must be feeding time," Molly said. As she spoke, an entire pod plunged through the clouds and into the ocean. They sent up great fountains of water in a spectacular display. This time, none could help but clap. Waters pointed. "Look!" One felina rose back out of the water with a different animal grasping its tail in its mouth. "Is it trying to eat it?" "It doesn't look like it," Molly said as they looked on with curiosity. The creature was stubby but broad, almost teardrop-shaped. Its large head was like a lion. It even had a flowing mane of bright red behind a smooth, tawny face. It tugged at the felina's tail playfully before it let go at a terrifying height. With a series of somersaults, it dove back into the ocean. The people laughed. It leapt out again in a great arc, almost in response to the crowd. It plopped in again with only the slightest splash. "What was that?" Molly asked. "That was a Ketos," Jonathan said. "There are more," Junebug said. A great pride of Ketos emerged and played in the water below. They leapt and twisted out of the water in synchrony. "They're showing off," the mayor said. "They're not done," I said. "Here they come." The sun set beneath the clouds, and giant medusas descended with it. They hovered just beneath the canopy of cloud cover where they caught the setting sun's last light. Its rays passed through their translucent bodies and turning red, orange, and gold. The light blanketed the coastal hills in prismatic warmth. The display of creation and the joy of the day moved Waters, and he thought to himself, "My Lord and my God." "Mayor," he began, but the words stuck in his throat suddenly. He felt a sense of shame as if something outside himself would stop him from speaking, but he continued. "Mayor, I'm ready to join the colonists." Molly's hands shot up to her mouth involuntarily. Jonathan looked surprised. Tommy and Junebug stopped tossing twigs over the cliff and stared. The mayor's eyebrows raised slightly, and he smiled. "All right, Alex, let's go down to the water." "Why?" Waters said. "You need to be baptized," the mayor answered. Now? Waters said. Why not? Are you ready? The mayor asked. Yes. Yes, I am, Waters affirmed. Who would you like to be your sponsor? The mayor asked. What does that mean? Waters asked. He had heard of this ritual but did not know very much about it. Your sponsor is someone who serves as a witness and testifies that your commitment is genuine and true, the mayor answered. Jonathan, would you sponsor me? Waters asked. Jonathan looked somewhat taken aback, but replied, Yes, of course. They descended to the beach. The mayor stepped into the water until the waves were chest deep. A pot of Quitos encircled him. They frolicked and jostled with each other to be the closest, spitting water playfully. The mayor motioned to Waters to join him. Are they dangerous? Waters asked with some hesitation. No more than an arcuda, the mayor answered. Waters began to take off his shirt, but the mayor stopped him. No, leave it on. He and Jonathan walked into the water together and faced the mayor. I present Alex Waters to receive the sacrament of baptism, Jonathan said. Alex, do you desire to be baptized? If so, answer, I do, the mayor said. I do, Waters affirmed. The mayor turned and addressed Jonathan. Jonathan, you have presented Alex for baptism. You should care for him and help him that he may bear witness to the faith, that by living in communion with the church he may lead a godly life until the day of Jesus Christ. Do you promise to fulfill this obligation? Jonathan placed his hands on Waters' shoulders. I do. The mayor addressed everyone present. I ask you to profess your faith, the faith in which we baptize. Do you renounce all the forces of evil, the devil, and all his empty promises? I do, Jonathan answered, as did Molly and the other colonists. Junebuck joined in as well. Tommy turned and looked at him with a screwed-up face. I do, Waters said. The mayor asked, Do you believe in God the Father? And the colonists proceeded to recite a creed Waters did not know, but he repeated the words. They all finished with, Amen. Here we go, the mayor said, and put one hand on Waters' forehead and another behind his neck and squeezed his chest tightly between his forearms. Alex, I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, the mayor said, and leaning Waters back, dunked him under the water and pulled him out again. Amen. The colonists clapped. Junebuck joined in, as did Tommy, reluctantly, still not sure what was happening. The Quitos responded to the clapping by leaping out of the water. Behind them the sun set below the horizon, and a flash of green lit the sky. Waters walked and stood where the incoming surf lapped at his feet and ankles, and the receding waves buried his toes in the sand. He blew water away from his mouth and wiped the sea foam from his eyes. He opened and wiped them again. The trees, sand, cliffs, bushes, the water, all of it was more vivid. The light passing through the transparent bodies of the medusas was like the flare of a contrail jetting through the sky. The waves came and went over his feet, but the water was no longer cold. It was warm and gave him a sense of comfort. The sea wind that had chilled him earlier was now a caressing breeze, carrying away the heat from the sand and relaxing his body. He felt both overwhelmed by the depth of everything he saw and calmed, as if he saw everything for the first time as it really was, as it was always meant to be. He remembered that night spent on the rover's roof in the bog more than a year ago, only this vision would not leave him. He was glad for the water still streaming from his hair, lest the others see his tears. Molly walked into the soughing waves with him. She took his face in her hands and kissed him for the first time. The others clapped louder. He blushed as she let him go, then looked and wiped his eyes again. A tiny light like a candle flame hovered in front of Molly's forehead. He waved his hand in front of her face to disperse the hovering wisp, but his hand passed through it with no effect. She took his hand. You have one too. So do we all, Molly said, motioning to the colonists. Has one what? Junebuck asked. Waters looked to each of the colonists. A flame hovered before their foreheads as well. His jaw dropped in astonishment. Let me see, he said, and rushed out of the surf, splashing sandy mud and water. Where's my phone? He grabbed it from the open tent and turned it on himself. You won't be able to see with your camera, Molly said. Here. She took his phone and powered it down, then held it up so he could see his reflection in the black screen. There, floating in front of his head, was indeed a tiny flame. He put his hand up and brought it down, looking into his palm. Molly smiled. I didn't see the flame until we got to Polus. I thought I was seeing things, that my depression had worsened and I was hallucinating, until I saw the colonists. This is why you can go into the city, Waters said. It's the sign of why she can go into the city, Patience said. The city only admits believers. No matter how hard you, we, or anyone else tried, none but those who believe could enter. That means I can see the city now, Waters said. Yes, the mayor said. You were always welcome but could not enter until now. What about us? Tommy asked. You know what you have to do, the mayor replied. Junebug looked hopeful. Tommy was skeptical and said, I'll take my time if that's all right with you. It is up to you, the mayor said. They spent the night in tents on the beach. Starlight penetrated the tent fabric like their own private planetariums. Waters thought he would not sleep at all, but the next morning opened his eyes to sunlight peering over the cliffs behind them. Waters hardly remembered the return trip at all. He rode next to Molly and chatted joyfully while the others made meaningful looks. Tommy made a face periodically, still not sure what he had witnessed. In no time it seemed they arrived back at the narrow gate. Waters turned and looked at his two companions. I'm sorry you don't get to come with me, he said. It's all right. I prefer it out here anyway, Tommy said. Junebug said nothing, contemplating everything that had happened. Are you ready? Molly asked, taking Waters' hand. Waters gave her hand a squeeze, and together they stepped forward.